It's a pretty dark place. Not one of the best places to be filming 2 in the morning. This is Nightmare on Elm Street. If you can make it past the glare, there you go. With the Rainbow of Death on the Glare of Death. And we looked at this recently, and it's a pretty okay game. Nothing special, not great, not bad, not terrible. It's sort of just there. It's okay. It's alright for a rainy day. We're going to stick that with the other onions that will eventually grow into sad onions and will eventually be plastered on cardboard backings of various cheap electronic tat. But that is a topic for another time to be told by someone else, preferably some British bloke in a silly suit. Anyways, we're going to leave that there. And we're going to look at today's subject matter, Friday the 13th for the NES. There's your Rainbow of Death, along with the Glare of Death from the flashlight. Now, I've reviewed a number of LJN published video games that sort of get a bad rap because they're published by LJN, but aren't actually that bad. You know, Nightmare is actually not that bad of a game despite being published by the Rainbow of Death. Friday the 13th, on the other hand, is your stereotypical LJN maker of toys video game. You know, pretty shoddy quality. It's got a great concept, but the quality of the gameplay is not that great. Now, this is a game that most people are familiar with. Either you actually played the game or you've seen a couple notable videos, shall we say. I don't want to call them reviews because they're not really much of that. And if you know what I'm talking about, then this video is pretty much going to be old hat. There's nothing new that's going to be added to what's already been said before. However, I can assure you that this video will not contain some twat in a Jason costume trying to be funny or scary, or eventually building acting credentials so that he could become the next irate gamer. Wait, that didn't come out right. Anyways, I digress. That's another horrible topic for another horrible day. One that I rather not be visiting at the moment. Anyways, I put it off long enough. It's time to visit Friday the 13th by LJN, by, I don't know the actual developer. Doesn't say here. For home use only. No shit, really? Yeah, I'm gonna have to play this. Alright, so let's get out of here. It's starting to get cold. And let's pop this into my, I guess it's gonna be the NES. Or maybe I'll pop this into the Twin, since it's closer. Maybe I'll have a beer.
Friday the 13th places you in control of 6 generic camp counselors whose main purpose in life is to protect the children presiding by the lake as well as the individual counselors themselves from the attacks of serial killer Jason Voorhees, all the while stocking up on weapons, items, and other gimmicks that will allow you to stand a chance against the mass murderer and eventually defeat him. Standing in your way are a variety of zombies, wolves, and other critters that will impede your progress. Critters that I cannot recall ever having anything to do with the older films, but I guess they had to fill the game with something, so why not? At least they have Jason's mother in there, even if she is just a floating Medusa's head by this point. There are 3 ways to die in this game: the classic means of running out of health after taking excessive damage, the classic means of stupidly falling into a pit, and finally an additional means where Jason kills off one of your counselors in reserve. Whenever Jason is attacking either a camp counselor or the children, the Jason alarm kicks in and you'll have 60 seconds to read the trouble spot in question and fend off Jason's attack. In the event that your counselors are in trouble, you can stop by a small cabin, pause the game, and pick the victim in order to control his or her fate. Also, on occasion, Jason will attack the children and you have to get onto a harbor, go to the cabins by the lake, and fend off against the killer. If you'll make it in time, Jason will kill 5 children. If all the children are killed off, the game ends. Of course, if all your camp counselors are killed off, the game ends with the classic "you and your friends are dead" game over screen. Oh yeah, before anybody gets any smart ideas in the comments, you're dead, your friends are dead, your family's dead, your fucking pets are being skinned alive, your mom's a fucking whore, you suck at life, the whole world hates you, you're going to hell, live with it, game over. So now that we got that childish bullshit out of the way, onwards with the review. Now, in fairness, I want to give Friday the 13th some sliver of credit and compliment the concept that the developers were attempting here. Somewhere beneath the poor design choices and lackluster effort belies a solid game idea that never got a chance to truly flourish here. Going around cabins, lighting fireplaces, defending fellow characters from Jason, random battles with Jason, exploring the terrain, acquiring items to improve your heroes. Seems like a mouthful. It seems like the basic groundwork for what should have been a really nifty adventure game of sorts, and had the final product gotten a lot more polished and Friday the 13th could have been a far more enjoyable game than what's there now. The main issue I have with the game is that it's pretty repetitive. Aside from the cave levels, which feature pits, and the lake area where you're basically rowing your boat, the game mostly has you going from left to right or vice versa in an even road with no hills, bumps, or anything to distinguish your surroundings. Basically, there's no real reason to have a jump button on hand other than to jump over zombies and other critters. This not only applies to the outdoor levels, but also the forest levels where you have to navigate an indistinguishable maze of sorts. Yeah, good luck with that. You're gonna be there a while, kid. Friday the 13th has functional controls. Nothing more needs to be said than that in that regard. I mean, they work. They're fairly simple to figure out. You won't have much trouble getting into it, even if you've never played a side-scrolling platformer on the NES before. Yeah, the arcing rock that goes over the heads of almost everybody is a nuisance, but you'll eventually get a better weapon in due time anyways. The cabin areas where you're navigating in a third person behind the back view is a nice way of mixing things up a bit, but it feels a bit excessive. All you do is roam around generic-looking rooms, light a fireplace or two. You might stumble across an item or so, or on occasion fight Jason in a poor man's power punch too. You'll also fight Jason's mother in this mode, by the way. I don't know, I get the funny feeling this was more of an afterthought than anything else and didn't really do much to make this an intricate part of the game. They could have easily replaced it with more side view sections and it wouldn't have made much of a difference. As a matter of fact, I would have preferred if they did go with more side view sections than this third person thing. You know, some games do it well, other games don't. This fits in the latter. Friday is a pretty long game, and not to spoil anything, but killing Jason once doesn't end the game. Instead, you have to defeat him twice more after this in order to complete the game. There's an increase in difficulty somewhat, and Jason tends to be harder to kill in the later levels, but other than that, it's the same tedious gameplay as before. I remember finally beating Jason for the first time ever long ago and raising my hands in triumph, only for the game to tell me that Jason's not done yet and I have to kill him again. I shortly turned the game off at the time, as I was assuming that they were teasing a sequel that never came to be, but as I would later find out in life, I was supposed to challenge Jason again by playing the same game over and over again. And after putting up with a game that barely held my interest the first time around, I wasn't tempted to go further. Maybe if there was a save system in place, or the gameplay was a lot more tolerable, hell, I'd go for passwords even. But with only 6 lives and no continues, no thanks. Yeah, if you keep going beyond the first kill, you'll get a better challenge with a much speedier Jason, and you'll even get some new tools and weapons to expedite the mass murderer's eventual and final defeat. But you'll get nothing for your efforts except for a lame-ass ending sequence after you kill Jason for the third and final time, which is, whatever. Visually speaking, Friday's nothing special. All 6 camp counselors look virtually the same with different color schemes and slightly varied afro sizes. The enemies are also pretty plain looking and look to have about 2 frames of animation total. And as for Jason, well, considering the hardware, they did the best they could with him, I suppose. I don't know, it's a step above the backdrops at least. While the parallax scrolling and gradual day-to-night transitions are during the outdoor levels are nice touches to the game and competently done, it doesn't change the fact that the game is just plain dull looking and almost cartoonish to a point. If you're in a forest or a cave or anywhere but the main path, you'll constantly be looking at the same backdrop with no variation whatsoever, save for the occasional passageway. And because there's no variation on the path in terms of level design, it's always the same narrow straight road. It tends to get really monotonous really fast, almost as bad as the audio in Friday the 13th. The sound effects are alright, I suppose, I'll give them that. It's a bit stock, but otherwise bearable. The music, on the other hand, if you want to call it that, comprises a couple short tunes at most, none of which are particularly any good. The main theme during the majority of gameplay, again if you want to call it that, is just a quick 10-second loop and it gets annoying really quickly. I suppose that I could forgive this annoyance if the tunes evoked some kind of tension or horror, but the only horror I got out of this game was when zombies started jumping out of the lake as I was rafting to save the children, so yeah, sorry, doesn't work for me. But you know what? Friday the 13th is a bit of an anomaly. As far as LJN branded video games go, this one's at least playable, and like I said before, I like the concepts they were trying to go for here, but the poor execution of these concepts on the other hand, the repetitively bland nature of the gameplay and presentation, and the lame attempts at artificially extending the game without doing anything extensively different in the later rounds, brings the whole package down several notches, and ultimately, it's no more different than the other titles published by the same company that gets a deservedly bad rap. Bottom line, if you want to satisfy your Jason Voorhees fix, go watch the movies instead. The NES Friday the 13th video game just doesn't do it.